You're listening to the Better in Bavaria podcast, hosted by U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria Public Affairs. We share stories and the people behind them, the soldiers and Army civilians supporting our readiness mission and making our community a great place to work, live, and raise a family.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Better in Bavaria podcast, talking to our special guest, Consul General Timothy Liston. I'm Andreas Kreuzer, and I'm joined by my co-host, Linda A. Reed. In the previous part, we talked about surfing, but there are so many other things and events to do. So what is your favorite event of the year?
So there's so many things I could talk about. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day because, as I told you, my time is coming to a close, and you try to get very reflective on things you've accomplished and what were your favorites. And I would probably have to say one of my favorite things that brought people together, the military was so involved in, was the first ever NFL game, the National Football League game that we did here in Munich in 2022. It was a long time coming. It was something that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, when he was just almost an intern under Paul Tagliabue, the commissioner, former commissioner, wanted to have happen. And to have it happen in Munich and have it happen at the Allianz Arena, which is kind of the real gem of football stadiums in Germany, and then I played a part in helping to bring it here. That will always be special. I'll never forget, I got to host a reception at our residence the night before and have NFL Commissioner Goodell show up, to have Seattle Seahawks, because Seattle played Tampa Bay when Tom Brady was still playing for Tampa Bay. The head coach from Seattle Seahawks showed up, Pete Carroll, and a couple of former NFL players. It was kind of like a dream come true as like an American kid who grew up watching football, and to work with the city to make sure that all the stuff that had to happen behind the scenes happened, and to see it come from fruition, and then stand at the 50-yard line and hear both national anthems played, and to have our color guards from our United States military and the Bundeswehr there together, and both groups of folks singing the song, the national anthems, is really, really touching. And then at the 2-minute warning before the game was over, they played John Denver Country Road, and the whole stadium sung this song. And even the football players are looking around like, what is going on? And Tom Brady said after that it was like one of the most memorable things he has ever experienced as an NFL football player. It was like Oktoberfest 2.0, because everyone really was just totally, it was electric. The atmosphere was electric. And it just, you had Americans and Germans and Italians and Austrians, whoever, all these people sitting next to each other for a game and singing the song together, like this American classic song. It was amazing. It was amazing.
So it was a good atmosphere there.
I'm
surprised because Germans usually are into soccer and not into American football. So there are looks like there are still a lot of fans in Germany. And
do you know the tickets for that game sold out in 7 minutes? Wow. And there's a 2.1 million person waiting list. All right, so NFL, American football is the second most watched sport right now in Germany. So it's it's the future market. This is why Frankfurt had 2 games last year. This is why the Carolina Panthers will be playing again in the fall, in November, here. We'll see who they're playing against, but it is a growing market. So the UK has been big, but now Germany is bigger, and it's just Bavaria is the place to do it. It's a fantastic atmosphere. I can only recommend people trying to get tickets for this. It's an experience. Yeah.
I wonder if the teams were more surprised that Germans were into football or John Denver. When they heard that.
Linda, that's a great question. I think they're both surprised, but they're all pleasantly surprised. The other thing I would say about the NFL coming here, it wasn't just the game. The NFL put a lot of time into talking the NFL up, talking football up with the community. We did the NFL sponsored a flag football event for teenagers, boys and girls, playing together. They've really made an effort to make NFL here as inclusive as possible. They put on events with social media influencers. from the LGBTQ plus community. At Oktoberfest, they got a couple tables. So what they're really trying to do is like, hey, this is a sport where everyone can enjoy it. And it was a whole week leading up to that in Munich. And then the night before the game, you see all these fans out with all their jerseys on, having a great time. It was a safe, secure, and fun environment, which I think makes football stand out, and was why it was so well received here by the city government. Because anything new was going to be kind of looked at with a bit of suspicion. But the NFL and the whole Munich community did such a wonderful job of presenting this sport that I think it's here to stay. And it's something that the city benefits from economically, but also image-wise. And that's why I think they'll be always welcome. The NFL will be welcome back as a part of like one of our great American exports here to Germany.
That's an important example, because we think of sports as being like about rivalry and competition, but actually you are using it to bring people together, communities together.
Kind of reminded me like a little bit of a Jimmy Buffett concert. It kind of came together. One thing we have to work on, we have to do a better job of tailgating. Find a place where to tailgate.
We'll introduce that. What would be the German word for tailgating?
Oh,
Andreas.
Biergarten.
Good one.
Very true.
Consul General, last time the Public Affairs Office got to be with you we were asking for your playlist, because that's really important to our garrison commander for his radio show, Dive In with Colonel Poole. He wants his guests to provide a playlist. And the other thing that was fun about that is that you were the first and the only guest so far who has had a 2-hour broadcast.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Talk
so that's a big deal. So I seem to remember your playlist was pretty deep into the boss, Bruce Springsteen. Why is that?
There was a lot of boss. There was a lot of Bruce Springsteen. I tried to mix it up. I had kind of rather eclectic. But the reason Bruce Springsteen was so much a part of that list and really interwoven throughout the various things, even from like Snoop Dogg to Blink 182, was because we grew up in the same place. We both grew up in New Jersey. We both grew up on the Jersey Shore. He grew up in Freehold, about 35 minutes north of me, and we had very similar stories that we saw more than, say, Central Jersey as a destination. We saw that as a starting point. And he wanted to see the world through music. He wanted to explore. He wanted to tell a story about the working man, about Middle America. And I just kind of want to tell America's story, but abroad. I really want to tell it internationally. I wanted to say what makes our country so wonderful, what makes it a cornerstone of peace, stability, and prosperity in the world. So from that perspective, we both came from places kind of just like Middle America, working class towns, and we saw our future beyond that. And that's why I put Thunder Road on there and Born to Run. Because both of those songs kind of sing to what our collective experiences in Jersey were. Now, I go back to Jersey, so I have my family still there. And Bruce still lives in Colts Neck, and he lives still about a half an hour from my mom.
Is that a small town?
The Colts Neck is not big. No, it's small. It's kind of out. It's horse country. And so we still have our roots there, but we've gone out and explored so much in the world. And, two things during my foreign service career that really are special, like they have are etched in my mind. First of all, is when I got off the plane in Berlin, in Tegel, when Tegel was still open.
The old one.
Oval. My taxi driver was from East Berlin. And he asked me where I was from. I was like, I'm from New Jersey. He's like, oh, you're from where Bruce Springsteen is. I'm like, well, actually, yeah, he lives in Munich. I actually am. Like 35 minutes south is where I grew up.
All roads lead to Bruce Springsteen.
All right. And he's like, I got to tell you, before the wall came down, he goes, I went to the concert in Berlin, in East Berlin, that Bruce played. It just changed my life. And it's like, inspiring his music is and what it meant to be an American and how much I love the United States. And it just was really the taste. He's like, Bruce spoke to this guy who grew up behind the Iron Curtain. And it just kind of showed to me what individuals want, what people are trying to pursue, what people wanted their life. And Bruce Springsteen connected with this guy whose government at that time was doing everything to keep that wall up and keep his freedom and independence down. So that was really special to me. And the other time was after 9/11, he put out The Rising. And that whole album just helped me get through a really tough time. I think it kind of tried to heal the nation and what he spoke about through that, because it was a tough time. And so that perspective, when he played here last, he played Munich. Maybe it's probably his last show in Munich last summer. I got to go with our ambassador, and she's a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. And it was just really nice being in Munich, listening to Bruce, and kind of things coming full circle in terms of my experience in the Foreign Service, and with him singing all of his great songs, all his great hits, and enjoying it in my capacity as Consul General. So he truly is an American institution. He's a national treasure, which I think speaks to so many generations, not just mine, but my parents and my kids. And so yeah, that was kind of, and he's from Jersey. That's
an interesting story that Bruce Springsteen did all that, because most Germans think that David Hasselhoff.
That's great. David Letterman talked about David Hasselhoff. It's like, and he just would stop them and say, "And the Germans love you." I've really, it's one of those things where you probably could write a PhD about. You probably could talk about that. David Hasselhoff's capturing the Germans' imagination.
That and surfing in Munich, right? Okay, well, this time is going by so quickly, so thank you so much for giving us your time and being our guest.
Love doing it.
On the show.
So we talked about going to San Antonio next, and I'm pretty sure that's not your first move. So can you tell us more about moving with the whole family?
Yeah,
the whole planet?
that's it's such an important part of the experience. And like many of your folks, I watch AFN, and you see these commercials about your PCS sponsor. And I can only say being a sponsor to a family gets you off on the right foot. So all those folks out there who are experiencing PCSs or have experiences, remember how important your social sponsor was, and be that next social sponsor, because that's one of the things that will kind of gives that sense of relief. You already kind of have a friend or someone who understands what you're going through. And we've done, I think, 7 moves as a family. Wow. And I remember sitting in a diplomatic, we call it A100, it's our orientation class as a foreign service officer. The ambassador spoke to us, like, you know what? These moves aren't going to get any easier as you go up the ranks. I'm like, what is this woman talking about? They must get easier. But no, you get more children, you get stuff, you get more logistics, maybe you have a pet thrown in there. So it's something that never gets easier. It gets more maybe manageable, but it's something that we all go through and that you can relate to, and you can always talk to your PCS officer or your fellow compatriots about making these moves, because you're not working just with your consulate or your embassy. You're working, or in your base, the base, you're working with Washington. And it's, you want to get your kids in schooling wherever they're going, you get them registered. So there's a lot of moving parts there that you always have to consider going forward. Well,
I have 2 questions. What brought you spoke about Bruce Springsteen wanting to see the world. So what brought you to diplomatic service, and how many languages do you speak?
So what brought me to diplomatic services? When I was 12, I was kind of a latchkey kid. Both parents worked, and so I had to come home, cook dinner on like Tuesdays and Thursdays. And one of the Tuesdays is when Newsweek would arrive in the mail. Yes, snail mail, right? So I used to get Newsweek, and I'd read it front to back, while making dinner and stuff. And one of the articles in there was about the strategic arms limitation talks that we're having with the Soviet Union. And there's this big spread of guys in a palace, standing in Vienna, negotiating this treaty that was trying to basically limit our ability to blow up the world in crude terms. I mean, it's trying to shrink the amount of strategic nuclear weapons that we had. And I just thought to myself, wow, what an amazing job. You get to represent your country in really cool places like Vienna, Austria, and do things that really matter to the world, not just to advance your own country's foreign policy objectives, but rather advance humanity's objectives. So I said, you know what? I really like to do that someday. And I never lost sight of that dream. I still, I show my daughters, I'm like, if you know what you want to do and you want just follow your dreams. I showed them my high school yearbook. It was written in the back. I wanted to be a diplomat and maybe an ambassador someday. And it took me to my late 20s, but I took the test. I got into it, and I never looked back. And I've really have enjoyed every bit. And my ambassador used to say, if you enjoy what you do, you're most likely going to do it well. So my take, I tell everybody who's going to, don't be, pushed aside or don't be thwarted or whatever about what you want to do. Do it. If that's what your heart, whatever sings to your heart, you should go ahead and do it.
Well, I'm putting you on the spot, but can you remember any questions from a quiz or test like that? Exam? What kind of things would they ask? Like, do you get along well with people, or do you...
That's how kind of like through the, it's changed so much since I went through the exam. But one of the group exercises, you basically have, say, $100 million and $150 million worth of projects. So each of you has a project, and you have to advocate for your project, and then have to find consensus. And there's no right or wrong answer, but it's how you interact and how you make the case and how you work with everybody is professionally, respectful, mindful, looking at what your country's objectives are, your mission's objectives. So that's one of the things. I remember that very clearly. The other one is it's kind of, they do this exercise where I call it choose your own adventure, because you give an answer and then they're flipping through, and I remember this question was asked, and the answer I gave, the guy's flipping through. I must have been so off the charts. They could not find an answer. So he's like, we're just going to move on. But it was a day-long experience, too. I mean, you had to be in there from 7:30 in the morning till 5:30 at night, go through the group exercise. Then you give a démarche, and a démarche is basically instructions from Washington, where you have to go in and give... basically talk to the MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, about whatever issue it is. So you had to do that, and we were trying to rescue these children's orchestra from Iowa who were being held there because their plane broke down. They didn't have the right visas. And they're yelling at you and stuff. And then you have to go into that choose your own adventure exercise, and then you have to go write a cable back to what was, so they want to see and you're not allowed to take notes. So you have to kind of do all that together. But you asked me before what languages I speak. I speak German, as you know, and then I speak Lithuanian and Vietnamese. So the wonderful thing about the Foreign Service is that they give you foreign language. So I had 23 weeks of Lithuanian, and then I got 9 months of Vietnamese. And that's your job. You have to learn the language every day, 5 hours a day. And Vietnamese was... you just reach your capacity for learning language. I reached my capacity for learning that language. Was a real challenge. But I loved learning it. I still use it here at least once a week. I go eat Vietnamese food, and I talk with the folks in the restaurant. And some of my dear friends are Vietnamese here. So again, learning language is not just the country you're serving in, but you can always find people to talk to.
Is there any other language you would love to learn?
I'd really like to learn Dutch if I could. And I think because of San Antonio, it's really important for me to learn some Spanish. Mm. It's 60% Latino down San Antonio, and I think it's really important. Yes. So I speak a little, but not enough to get by. So that would be my homework. Before I go inside to learn some basic.
So, Andreas, you're on a crash course of learning Latin, are you?
Yes, sir. My future wife is from Panama. So
really? Are you going to learn Spanish?
I am living in a Panamanian household.
Very good. Excellent.
So, Consul General, you met a lot of people, and you're here with all the... Do you have any interesting story with German host nation, politicians, or any other people?
That's a great question. It's something I really wanted to. I was thinking about. It'd be fun to be able to talk about. as you know, diplomacy, the coin of the realm, as we say, our currency is relationships. And you best, in my opinion, and I found that in Bavaria too, the best way to build a relationship is over a meal, over food, right? Because everyone has to eat. Everyone likes to talk about food. And so my main counterpart, the one I deal, and it's become a real dear friend of mine, is State Minister Florian Herrmann. And he studied at the University of Pennsylvania, did his LLM there. And he loved Philadelphia, had a great year. And his favorite food is cheesesteaks. So there is a food truck in Unterhaching, just south of here, owned by a guy from Philadelphia, Dave, who I must say makes the best Philly cheesesteaks. I'm from Jersey. My favorite Philadelphia team is the Philadelphia Flyers. I've eaten cheesesteaks in Philly my whole life. These are the best cheesesteaks I've had outside of Philadelphia. And so I said, Florian, I'm inviting you to have a cheesesteak with me down in Unterhaching. And he was like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, just don't ask. Let's go down there. So I brought my staff. He brought his. And we started this tradition last year. And we call it #Cheesesteak Diplomacy. So he was enthralled. He didn't believe, he loves his cheesesteaks. He loves himself some cheesesteak. And so we do this every other month in our schedules. And it's the first Monday of the month. And it's this is called American Burger Bar. If you ever can go down there, I highly recommend it. And so we do this, and it's just sitting in the middle of a parking lot, Edeka parking lot, with Stehtische, with standing tables, eating cheesesteaks. And it's something that I will never, ever forget. It's like one of the things, he loves it. I love it. I'd love to be, my one wish is to bring the whole cabinet together, because we've had other ministers there. We've had the Minister of Agriculture there. We had the State Minister for, we have not had him yet. We have the City Council member for Munich. So we try to bring folks down. Everyone loves the food. It's just a great way to connect and talk about business in a real human way. And that is something that I will always treasure going.
That's an interesting cultural exchange story.
It is.
So, but what's your favorite Bavarian food?
Oh, such a good question. I would have to say, I think Schweinsbraten. Schweinsbraten, but with a twist. I know y'all usually eat it with Kartoffelknödel. Yep. I like mine with Semmelknödel. Okay.
As long as there's no ketchup involved.
No ketchup. But Schweinsbraten with extra. No spring out. Yeah, it's very tasty.
So, Consul General, this time with you is just speeding by, but I know that the consulate does a lot to help people, and you help people in emergencies, but what are some things in a prevention track that you would like people to know?
Yeah, this is a great question, because we want everyone to come to Bavaria and have a great time, enjoy themselves. But as you know, you're in a foreign country, and we expect to have everyone respect and abide by local laws and customs. Oktoberfest, we see a lot of Americans come over here, having a great time. But you can get yourself into a situation which we would rather, that might be unsafe, and this is something we'd like to prevent. So we work very closely with the Munich government, the police department, to put out public service announcements about how to conduct yourself in certain situations, to watch your alcohol consumption. And if you're a woman, there are places set up around Oktoberfest where if you're feeling unsafe or you're in a bad situation where it's not going right, you can go to. And they're well marked. We'd still advise people to get to know them. Go on the website. And there's an app for Oktoberfest. But also, please know that you can always reach out to the U.S. Consulate here. We always recommend do not take your passport with you. If you're staying at the hotel, put it in the safe.
Now, this is kind of news. You do not want your passport with you?
It is. If you're staying overnight, and you know you're staying overnight, the safe is a good place to have it. What we do recommend is make a color copy of it, and always keep a copy of your passport in your wallet with you. It will save you a lot of time and effort. Of course, if you're coming down for the day and you're staying or you're going somewhere into a different country, you're going to need to take it with you. But we would recommend, if you're staying overnight, just to leave it locked in a secure place in your hotel in the safe if possible. That will save you. We get usually 50 to 80 passports every Oktoberfest. People have somehow lost them.
Every Oktoberfest.
Yep, and unfortunately they usually show up a week or two later. They're not right, so people will give you an emergency passport, but we would prefer that you don't have to